There was some confusion as to exactly what was bobbing above the Trump crowd at Virginia Beach, Virginia. Even those who recognized its physical components were more than surprised as to what they were actually seeing. Finally, even those who had covered this 16-month-long kaleidoscopic mix of those Americans who have only vague and loose bonds to reality, and others who dwell in a fantasy world made up of equal parts video game and television horror series, those who had been benumbed by the public emergence of the dregs of our society, even they were appalled when they figured out what it was supposed to be. From the Twitter account of Emily Stevenson of Reuters, from the Twitter account of Jenna Johnson of the Washington Post, from the Twitter account of Ellie Hall of BuzzFeed. A Hillary Clinton mask stuck on the end of what appears to have been an adjustable cane. In short, Clinton's head on a metaphorical pike, as if she had been beheaded, as if this were the French Revolution and she was the governor of the Bastille prison, as if, as Ms. Stevenson pointed out, we were living in Game of Thrones. This is mentioned by way of reminding you, if you are a Hillary Clinton supporter or if you do not want to see Donald Trump become president, or both, take nothing for granted in these next 13 days. Take no poll at face value. Take no comfort in trajectories. Take no break because she has done this well or he has done that disastrously. Assume the worst. Assume that the ABC tracking poll giving her a 12-point lead is the outlier and the LA Times tracking poll showing them tied is the baseline. Assume that whatever you think is a safe margin to save this country from democracy suicide in 2 weeks, it is actually too low, too close, and too dangerous. Hillary Clinton's head on a pike. And in fact, not for the first time. From the Twitter feed of Emily Schultz on August 31st. It's in the foreground. The stick just isn't very long. This was a rush job. The guy in Virginia Beach, it seems he took his time. Whoever he is, he planned it out, got his materials, assembled it slowly. He is the symbol of the Donald Trump gang of bullies. He is the symbol of what will be recorded as a political campaign, but which for an alarming number of its participants long ago ceased to be anything but an enabled venue for violent fantasies and hatred based on the need to hate. It seems specific to Hillary Clinton, but if it had been Bernie Sanders, there would have been another motif, and we know what it would have been. If it had been Michelle Obama, there would have been another motif, and we know what that would have been. If it had been Joe Biden, there would have been another motif, and we can't even guess what it would have been, because it doesn't matter. It is the fantasy of normalized violence that is the motif, and that keeps the Trump crowd together. He stands there blaming Hillary Clinton and the Muslim faith because ISIS has beheaded victims. His supporters show up carrying images depicting Hillary Clinton beheaded. I don't know what to do about them if he loses. This past Sunday, Trump made a truly horrifying suggestion that he wants to keep on holding these rallies for the next 8 years, just because. I suspect most of those who now enjoy the long-form version of Orwell's 2 minutes hate will evidently, unlike Trump, recognize that the election will have already ended and the rallies will only address Trump's psychological problems and needs. Even his angriest gang members will scurry back under the floorboards and other places where the bullies hide when their protection disappears and their cowardice is exposed. So if you want to stop Trump and you feel relieved by recent news, sleep better, but do not sleep longer. If you have viewed the outcome of this election correctly, I think, as life or death for the Republic, you must now view the margin of the election as life or death for the Republic. Vote. Get others to vote, vote in groups, look up and carry with you the various voter intimidation hotline phone numbers, be ready to photograph anybody who tries to impede you when you go to vote. And one more thing. Remember Donald Trump's ceaseless, tireless, classless repetition of the claim that the election is, quote, rigged. But remember it in the context of what one of this year's great patriots, his Art of the Deal ghostwriter Tony Schwartz, observed about Trump and projection. Remember that Schwartz tweeted, most negative things he says about others are actually describing him. Since Trump has endlessly bleated this charge that Hillary Clinton and everybody else are trying to rig the election, since his interests and those of the Russian hackers and WikiLeaks are running on parallel tracks, if not the same track, go into the last stretch here assuming that Trump's charge of rigging is actually an admission of an attempt to rig the election on his behalf, not against him. Does that make you uncomfortable? Good. Trump imperils our democracy and is now the proverbial wounded wild animal in the corner. From him, incapable of conceiving himself mistaken or rejecting or failing anything in these last 13 days, anything is possible. And if that still is not motivation enough to fight this with every fiber of your being until the last vote is counted, just remember where this piece began. On a pike. That's the closer. I'm Keith Olbermann. Watch this space.